So one of the questions that I want to ask all of the three of you guys is, what kinds of aspects in particular during your time at Stockton best prepared you for going on into the various industries that you guys are in?
One of the biggest strengths that the Stockton Geology program has is one, preparing you for field work. There are very few positions in the field of geology where you are not involved in some kind of outdoor field work. The Stockton Geology program in particular does a great job at not only preparing you for how to sample while in the field, but also how to handle yourself in that type of environment, and then to collect your data in the field, bring it back into a classroom or an office setting, and then compile that into a publishable report. So not only do we work on field skills, but then once we brought that data back into the classroom, into the office, they then tutored us on how to turn that data into something we could publish and talk about. So the emphasis on the Stockton Geology program is not just field work, but also how to use that field work and to gain data from that field work and to make that a publishable, usable product that I use in every single job I've ever had. Another great skill that the Stockton Geology program taught me was how to teach. Part of my experience after graduating was being an adjunct professor of geology for about 4 years at Monmouth University. While I was at Stockton, I was able to be a teaching assistant for 2 semesters, one for physical geology and then for a more advanced course in ore deposits. So working with Rocky, working with the teachers on not only how to instruct, but how to grade, how to create labs, how to create things for students to work with, that was an invaluable skill that I not only took into the professional realm, but I also took with me into grad school, where I was a teaching assistant there as well. So I think just that collaborative effort between your advisor, the professors, and the students is very unique, even at Stockton. I've talked to several other students who receive their geology degrees from other institutions, and while they do have a lot of merit and they did have a lot of fun, that direct relationship with your professor where they can cultivate and grow your strengths is very unique to this program. There's not many other programs like that, I would venture to say, on the East Coast, if not the US.
Agree with her. Also, the geology program, not just more of an academic aspect, there's more of a community aspect to it. Socially, this program is probably one of the best programs for people who don't know a sense of community. I'm one of them. There's a lot of people that I've met in the field that don't have the academic, I would say, level of where you're supposed to be as a geologist. Not necessarily everyone's like that, but you'll see it. A lot of programs are meshed together. It's not a geology program, it's environmental with earth science and geology. So this program, you're very lucky. It's very specific geology where you can branch out, go get your master's, go get your doctorate degrees, or you can be like me, and I did a different path, that's all, and I'm doing it here locally.
What I felt that was a great plus of Stockton was having like the amount of people that were in the classes, and like you were saying, Corinne, like we will help each other, and like also like I never felt afraid of asking any questions or asking help to, like from Rocky to like during the lecture or any labs or anything like that. So I feel like that communication between the students and the professor was a great plus that I actually haven't experienced before. So that helped me a lot, and that sense of community that I got from Stockton was great.
What would you recommend for students who are potentially interested in doing this in the future, whether they're going to go the path of geology majors or geology minors? What in particular would you recommend as kind of pathways to consider?
For academic, the fun part about the Stockton Geology program is how diversified you can make it. If you would like to go into teaching, there is a great opportunity for you to work with both the education department here at Stockton as well as the geology department to ensure that you can then go on to be an earth science or a science teacher at a local high school, middle school. Another great opportunity is how many of the courses cross over with several other courses in NAMS, the biology department, chemistry department, physics department, math department, etc. You can create your own adventure, if you will, with either Stockton geology program as your major or your minor. And from there, having either that major or minor is going to open several different pathways for you after you graduate. Career-wise, I mean, it's really limitless what you want to do with this program. This program in particular has not been diluted. Several other geology programs across the East Coast at this time have been significantly diluted, which is what Corinne, you were referring to earlier, where they have now merged them into maybe just an environmental science and geology program, or a soft core science where it kind of takes a little bit of all the natural sciences. This is one of the few programs where you can graduate with a BS and then immediately apply to grad school programs, whether they be PhD or master's degrees, without worrying about, did I take enough courses? Did I get enough classes? The professional licenses available for geologists in New York and Pennsylvania also require that you have a certain amount of credit hours in several of these courses. The Stockton Geology program ensures that you have those minimums. So if you'd like to continue on in an academic route, they set you up for success that way. If you'd like to continue on in a more professional route, they set you up for success in that way. They also maintain very good relationships with all their alumni, which allows current geology majors, current geology students to reach out to see what opportunities might be available from the alumni, or whether or not they like their experience after school.
Industry, so my limit of what I know, but now that I've been at this job for a year, I'm getting inklings of where you can go. So right now I'm very new, so I'm learning about remediation, basically cleaning up our old industrial waste from 1900s, and from there, that's one. That's not even one, that's like a speck of one. Remediation is so broad, it's not need to be understanding the geology there. It's going to infiltrate through the soils, go down through to the bedrock, depending on the bedrock. Is it going to follow the bedrock, or is it a very porous, weathered limestone, and it's going to go through cracks? And that's things I got to learn about. But I mean, that's one avenue. And then there's people that they just hired for water resources. These are people that are going to help engineer and understand the geology of the area for dams and new ways to move water because of issues of erosion from climate change and rising seas. That's another area. I'm learning that there's literally an eco. I didn't even think about it. There's an ecological side of it. After all that restoration and remediation is done, you got to make it look like it was before. So they have people that go out there and look at plants and stuff like that. But they need to know about the soils and the rocks of the area and make sure that the ecology of the area is coming up. Lots of administrative jobs, but what's the fun in that? There's no geology. So, I mean, that they're just the little bit I know in the 3 years I've been out in the field. So, I mean, all I know is it is limitless. I mean,
Yeah, I want to add to that. I want to add to that, saying that there is like Kareem was saying, there's like infinite paths that you can take. Either if you take it into academia or you take it into the industry, it doesn't matter, because you can get. I got all this background from Stockton, like I was saying at the beginning. And for example, my first job was doing basically just only soils. And I was working with soil scientists, but also I have my background in petrology and mineralogy and field geology. And when I would go in the field, they were like, I would look at geologic map, and basically looking at that, you can kind of predict what kind of soils you're gonna find in an area, and what kind of, like, based on that, you're gonna see, does it percolate or not, or looking like the morphology of the area, or everything. So, and like, for example, when I went to geotechnical engineering, was the same thing. For example, an engineer will ask you like, oh yeah, you gotta go drilling at this place, and they're gonna do the aspect of like the bearing capacity, where they can put a building and all that kind of stuff. But also, they don't know anything about like the geology of the area. Sometimes they can look at a rock and they can say, "Oh, this is basalt," and you can look at it closely, and it's not basalt; it's diabase, which like they don't know much about that. So, you as a geologist, you have the eyes that engineers don't have, or other scientists don't have, and also like all these classes that you can take at Stockton, you can get a little bit of background of like different classes, which can help you a lot in the field.
Kind of want to point out is the fact that while I only have 3 people here who kind of represent kind of industries that are Jersey specific or East Coast specific, our students do go all over the place. I mean, Alex's research undergrad, Andrew Del Turco, for example, is working out in the mining industry out in Idaho. And we have other students who are working in the mining industry in Arizona and Nevada and places like that. We have people who are in academics positions all around. One of the things that I kind of want to come back to, since I have 2 people here who both went to grad, well, one who's currently in grad school and one who is finished. How well do you think that your degree here prepared you for graduate school in particular, compared to your classmates?
Oh, I was extremely prepared for grad school prior to going in. I mean, nothing ever really prepares you for a new move to a new school with new people. That aspect of it is entirely different. That's hard to prepare for. But I would say academically, I was very prepared for grad school, and you and Professor Hosick, who has since retired at the time, were very key in ensuring that I made sure I got all my classes, that I had my letters of recommendation done in time, that I took my GREs in time. You helped me find different schools and different programs, because when you go into grad school, you do have to pick a concentration that you'd like to further study, and you were very critical in helping me figure out what that might look like and whether or not it would be something I would enjoy. I've never had to take another class. The curriculum that Stockton has is set up so that way you don't have to worry about taking classes. In addition, once you leave, because I know two people I went to grad school with had to take Calc 2 once they got there, because it wasn't, they didn't realize it was mandatory prior to applying. But also say that's something that was emphasized through the Stockton Geology program, is how accessible grad school is for undergraduates once they go on to that next stage if they would like to. I had that same emphasis and care for what I was going to do after I graduated, whereas at Stockton, they emphasized to me ways I could successfully get into grad school, not only get in, but get into a fully funded program where I would receive a stipend. And that's what ended up happening. I went to Lehigh University. My tuition was fully covered 100%. I received a stipend of a little less than 30 grand a year to be a teaching assistant for them. And then I was able to study, my area rather of study was on Italian alpine rocks. And so the metrology of that environment. So I had a great grad school experience because I knew what I was getting into. I knew how I was going to be set up for success. My first semester that I TA'd at Lehigh, they put me into an upper level course, a hydrogeology course. I had never taken a hydrogeology course, but they figured I could handle it because I had prior teaching assistant experience at Stockton, whereas not a single one of my other classmates coming into that year had any teaching experience. So the reason that I was given that upper level responsibility was because I had that from Stockton's geology program.
So yeah, I guess that Stockton has really prepared me to be in grad school currently. Like you were saying, I'm actually TAing right now hydrogeology, and I haven't taken hydrogeology before. So
That's great.
yeah. So I feel very prepared. I haven't struggled with the TAing at all. Like, and also I can refer back to some of, because I haven't taken hydrogeology. I took hydrology at Stockton, and I referred to some of those notes currently to for the lab, prepare the lab and everything. So yeah, and like I was saying before, doing research at Stockton has really helped me to think outside the box and do problem solving, because that's very important when you're in grad school. And yes, it's an adjustment when you get into grad school, because also I was working in the field and I had a gap from being in school, but sometimes I just like, when I found struggling with something, I just like refer back to my notes, and I have that background that is currently helping me to get through classes and get through research. And I'm doing research in geophysics, and I took a geophysics class in Stockton, where I basically got all the basics to what I'm doing currently. So Stockton will prepare you for success, either if you want to go to the industry or either if you want to go into research. And also I've had an RA position where my tuition is getting paid and I'm getting paid to basically do research. So it's great. So, and like I said before, I think I wouldn't be here if it wasn't because I went to start.
Did any of you guys take in internship opportunities? And if so, what would you recommend about that?
Really do them. They really help with your experience, especially knowing how to handle people out career wise, because it's going to be different than Stockton. You're at a job. So internships I find are crucial for, understanding that employee-employer relationship. Also, getting your feet wet, what to kind of expect. They're really soft on you in the beginning, though, so it's kind of half of what you're going to get in the real world. But the point is, you see everybody else around you. But yeah, the internships here at Stockton, if you can't get one that is, kind of like a job, there are internships here. Professor Rocky has them. He has things that he does.
Research opportunities.
Yes. So ask him, same thing with Professor Weber. I had internships through more environmental science. So I went with Emma but these are important too for geology, hydrogeology. So I had a hydro internship with in the environmental stuff. So I was on Stockton, I was measuring the velocity of Lake Fred. I was out my waders out there like everybody else was measuring, I was out in the middle of the forest, collecting soil and we're drying it in the kiln, and measuring the weight from it. So these are soft skills that you really need anyway when you do go into the field. So I also had an internship through the Cumberland County Health Department. And that was great because administratively it got me on part of what to expect. Because you can't just do field work and you can't just look at data if you want to succeed and move forward. You have to look at everything. And I found that if I am basically a one-man band and know a lot, have a lot of trades, I'm more valuable here and here and here. So these are all skills that I find valuable that, propel you forward. But yeah, there's lots of opportunities here with Stockton. Outside of Stockton, that they will notify you through email and or through your professors. Don't be afraid to talk to your professors. They will give you a foot in the door so you can go through it and you follow your own path.
First job I actually got was through an internship. So I think internships are very, very important if you can do them. For example, I started interning in the company that was working in Southwest Virginia, and I basically interned during COVID for like 2 months. And there weren't that many jobs around, especially when you're working in Southwest Virginia. And literally, I just talked to the company, and they were willing to have me as an intern. And when they realized that I have a background in geology and I knew about soil science, and because the company I work for, they were a little bit old school, and they realized I knew about technology, like I was saying, like ARC and CAD and LiDAR and all that kind of stuff, they were very impressed because they didn't know any of this and they didn't know how to implement it. So right away, they were willing to hire me, and that's how I got my first job through an internship.
And also, I just want to point out, Stephen parlayed that Department of Transportation internship last summer into a full-time job that he's already got. He had the offer a month ago, basically, and he has his job lined up for post-graduation already. Stockton geologist at the Department of Transportation. But that's because they know the geologists that are coming out of here are really well trained, and that's kind of one of these things. And I know Alex mentioned and Katie both mentioned upper level classes, and these are the kinds of things that allow you to really specialize your training and your experience. And Katie actually was the first TI I had for the ore deposits class and actually helped create some of the class materials that you guys still have in there. But those literally, I was told at one national conference that we're literally the only undergraduate institution that offers an ore deposits class anywhere east of the Mississippi, pretty much. The geophysics class that Alex mentioned, very few undergraduate institutions have those as an upper level elective. They might have them for their grad students, but maybe not for their undergraduates.
So every upper level grad school, or every grad school course that I took at Lehigh in grad school, there's none of my other fellow colleagues had anything like that going into it. Whereas my first semester of grad school, I took a geophysics course that was very akin to the geophysics course I took at Stockton. So that overlap of being a first year grad student, new school, new environment, new teachers, new everything, but having that familiarity of the material because it was offered as an undergrad was very, very valuable for me because I was in this uncomfortable setting, but I was immediately comfortable with what I was learning about because I'd already learned about it. It was just a new environment for me to be in. So it goes into a little bit more detail. It's kind of like taking an AP course in high school, and then you take the college course. I'd say it's equivalent to that, where if you take AP Bio in high school, your first year of bio in college is going to be a lot easier. A lot of the same material, different deliverables, but a lot of the same content. I would say it's very similar from Stockton's upper level courses to your first year in grad school.
Are you guys happy with your careers?
I am. I very much enjoy my career. Had a PowerPoint, but I guess we're not doing that today. So really quick, I work for the Mine Safety and Health Administration. That's through the Department of Labor. So, and it's called MSHA. You've probably heard of OSHA before. MSHA is the Mine Safety and Health Administration. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So in my current role, my number one goal is, of course, to ensure that we protect the mining community's most valuable resource, most precious resource, which is the miner itself, the people that are working in this industry. Everything you use every single day has either been mined or it's been grown from the ground. It is a critical industry that we have to maintain. Now, how we do that and how we do it safely, effectively, both from an environmental standpoint, but also a human standpoint, that's really where I would like to help them. So my main goal is compliance assistance. And that's my main job as a training specialist, is to ensure that everybody who's working in these quarries has been properly trained to work in them, that they are complying with all the regulations within the the 30 CFR, which is the Code of Federal Regulations on Mineral Resources. And then where needed, I also assist them with hazard recognition within the quarry itself. So my skills as a geologist has been invaluable because I can see high wall hazards or other geologic hazards that maybe a normal person who hasn't had this type of training wouldn't see with their naked eye. And in this current position, I've completed hazard reporting, or what happens is you can anonymously report if you think there's a hazardous working condition at a site. And so in that event, I go out with enforcement and I see if there is a hazardous condition there, both from a training aspect, but also a physical aspect. Another component of my job is I do fatality investigations. So when there is a accident at a mine site that causes someone to lose their life, I go on site to also assist with that investigation to see if it was a natural cause. Heart attacks happen to be the most common cause of natural fatalities at mine sites, or to see if it was from a hazard on site. Maybe they weren't scoring their high walls correctly, or to see if it was a training issue or a paperwork issue. Was that person ever trained? Should that person have been operating that crane? And the most recent fatality investigation I did was in New York in October. But most of my job is compliance assistance. Prior to that, I worked in the environmental consulting industry for about 5 years, and I also taught at the same time at Monmouth University at night for a course in geology. So I've had a foot in almost every sector that you can go into after you graduate with this degree. I've been in academia, I've been in private industry, and now I'm in my federal position, which I think is by far my favorite. So if you have any questions regarding any of those types of careers, I'd be more than happy to help you out and learn more about them.
Okay, for one, that is one excellent reason why environmental and geology are awesome, because you save, or you basically prevent same catastrophes from happening in the future. So that's amazing. Relatively new, so I'm heading into more environmental remediation. I love my job now. I've been at this job. It's called GEI Consulting. Basically, I'm a environmental / geologist there. Geology and training there now that they know my path. I love my job now. I absolutely love it. It took me a long time to get here right after graduation, even though it's like 3 years. When you're trying to navigate through, it's exhausting sometimes. This job's amazing because, like I said, the job I had prior, it was just due diligence, regulation, reporting. But it wasn't just sitting there. I was looking at maps, topographic maps. I was looking at old maps from the 1900s, fire insurance maps, Sanborn maps, they call them. So you're looking at the history of the site. So it's not just that. And then you get to the geology and the soil of the area, because you need to understand if there's a contamination. How is that contamination going to basically the relationship between the soil and water, and how is it going to spread? So I learned all those skills. And now this job, I get to go out in the field and be the scientist to collect that data, say, find the contamination. And that's the path I'm going on, is basically finding the contamination. And that's putting wells in to test water. You're taking soil out of the ground, you're testing the soil. You're putting bedrock wells in because there's different layers of aquifers. How deep did the contamination go, depending on the rock? I love my job. I mean, I'm not bored. There's not one boring day. I'm doing something different every day. I'm either writing a report for 2 weeks and then move on. Now I'm out in the field collecting my data. Data's coming back from the lab. I'm looking at my data. I'm putting it in Excel sheets. I'm conferring with my team. We're going back and forth. We have people that do due diligence, and they either tell me what's going on with the site, or I'm doing the due diligence. And it's never a boring day. I get to do a whole bunch of stuff, but I want to go more geology based. So I don't really want to do due diligence. I like environmental, but I like being out in the field. I like being out with the drillers. The drillers, they know the bedrock, they know the soil, they deal with it every day, and they are a hoot to be with. It's just a nice adventure. I like my job right now. But this is just one path. I'm going to stay here for a while, learn, get my BA, stay with them, get experience. I might stay there 10, 15 years, who knows? And then move on to something else. All depends. But I finally have a job I really like. And like I said, I left Stockton. I got a job that wasn't the greatest job in the whole world, but you have to start somewhere, get a little experience there. Found another job. That job was different than anything I ever did. COVID hit, and I was literally stuck in a chair for like 12 hours a day. I didn't know how to get out of it. It wasn't me as a person, how I could handle it. And then I found another job that fit every aspect of what I wanted to do. And now I feel important. I feel like I matter, and I do something, and I am in my team, and we're doing something great in the world. So that's my experience for now.
Say I'm happy to. when I was working in the field in my previous job and now in grad school, I really enjoyed my previous job because I got to go everywhere in New Jersey, and I got to see like drillers, like when I was doing coring and all that kind of stuff, and I was overseeing test pits and learning about geotechnical engineering. So I wasn't just doing one thing, I was doing multiple things. I was like getting different backgrounds. So it was great to be in the field most of the time and like seeing different things. And currently now in grad school, I'm really enjoying it because I'm doing geophysics, something that I always wanted to do. And what I'm doing is like it's called spectral induced polarization, which basically inject the current into the ground, into the soil or ground, and then that way you can detect contaminants. Which what I'm doing is detecting contaminants in the soil, a contaminant called PFAS that is found everywhere. Um, Aside from that, I can also do SIP in the mining industry, which is huge. So I have many opportunities once I graduate. Can be stressful sometimes being in grad school, but it's also enjoyable and it's going to take you places. Also, aside from that, I have a potential trip going to Peru, doing resistivity in peatlands, which I'm very excited about, but I'm not sure if it is happening because of the political situation currently over there. But as you see, I have like many opportunities. I'm traveling, I'm doing research, and I know when I graduate from grad school, I'll have a bunch of opportunities. So.
So do I have any questions from the audience, whether you're online? If you're online, please like raise your hand if you know how to use the hand feature in Zoom. If not, quickly just unmute yourself. For anyone in person.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm an environmental science major, but I'm also minoring in geology. And I'm currently taking hydrology, and I'm really enjoying it. And I noticed you guys are talking a lot about hydrogeology. So, what are some like career paths or areas of study that are really prevalent or would be a good, opportunity to investigate?
In environmental consulting. My husband had the same exact career path. He was an environmental science major with a geology minor, and he's now a hydrogeologist. And he's been doing that for nearly 10 years now. So that's one of the easiest ones. That's a direct pipeline into environmental consulting is that career path. It's one of the strongest combos you can have as environmental consulting major with a geo minor or vice versa. But that pipeline for that major into environmental consulting, no problem. Or academia too, or anything with the state as well.
Yeah, environmental consulting, it may not be the career path you want, but they're the soft skills you need moving forward for your career.
Yeah.
That's especially this area. It gives you the soft skills, and plus it gives you a limelight on drillers and your contacts and your clientele. And I mean, my company, we do mostly like gas companies and electric companies, and that's our clientele. Other companies do strictly banks, and they do due diligence and close on properties, and they need to do investigations. That's another one. There's just so many avenues of it.
Hydrologist positions with the USGS as well. That's an easy one to get into. There's also geology positions with the Department of Defense, or the FAA, especially outside of in Atlantic City. There's a lot of FAA positions and EPA positions available for people who have that type of background.
Yes, actually, NJDP, I noticed that they also post a lot for environmental. Basically, you're just a tech and a scientist coming in, and you're going to do all the monkey work, but you're going to learn those skills and you'll move up. You either can stay there or you get your skills and move on. NJDP, yes, yeah, pensions and all that, but they got rules and all that stuff. And maybe it's not something you want. And then there's other corporations where they give you better opportunities than what the state could give you. Or you go to another state and maybe they'll treat you better. Maybe a county will treat you better. But I mean, it depends on what you want, the career path that you want to go. But administratively, you need a little bit of that background.
Companies, particularly as you move out west, that are dealing more of the precious and base metals, where they do a lot more hydrogeology involved with it, because in some cases they're specifically trying to use the water to leach some of the metals out, and so they have to consider that a lot more highly. Yeah, we have 3 New Jersey people here, so it's harder to get their input, so I'll speak for them.
Yeah, a lot of that work out west, a lot of that's done by geotechnical engineers. So if you can get into that field, you could then cross over. With this geology degree, there are some firms that will hire you as a geologist, even though they list it as a geotech position, they'll still hire you as a geologist, and then you can laterally transfer to other companies if you would like to.
Yeah, geotechnical. You can do geotechnical work too, but you can also do like geophysics work too. There's companies that you don't have to necessarily have your master's degree, but you can be a scientist or a tech going in, and they'll teach you the rounds and all the field work that goes with it. So I mean, other entryways to move on up. I mean, they're just lower positions, so you earn you earn your experience. You basically work with people and see the ins and outs of things. So you can be a driller. I mean, it's hard work, but if you want to own your own company, you go get your BA in geology, you can have your own company, and then you have your credentials of, hey, I know what I'm doing. If you want to go that path too. I mean, there's lots, now that I'm thinking, there's lots of different paths you can go.
Hi, my name is Ryder. I'm actually not in the geology program. I'm an NVIL student. But from your perspective in the professional world, is there a big difference between having a BS or a BA? Because I have a BA right now.
I'd say the BS is a much more strong degree. If you're going into environmental consulting, a very large portion of companies won't really care if it's a BS or a BA. I'm not saying that everyone won't. Some will, some don't. But if you'd like to have a more diverse background and be able to move to other types of companies, type of work, BS is much more marketable at this time.
A lot of companies are looking for how much science classes you have, and the more the better. So the BS is the way to go. That's what I had, BS environmental, minor in the geology. Hands down, they'll look at your resume and there might be one BS and two BAs. They'll take that BS before they take the BA because of more experience. But I've known it from other people. I've known it where I had classmates and we went to the same job, and that's what happened. So it was just.
Also, if you decide to go to grad school later on or something like that, you're gonna have a hard time because you're gonna need the background in calculus or other classes that you might be missing. You might be able to take them later on, but sometimes having the BS is a little bit more helpful.
I was talking with a colleague at the Geologic Society of America's Northeast meeting a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the fact that there are literally 40,000 jobs on an average year that come up for geoscience, hydrogeology, all those different kinds of things. There are only about 4,000 geology graduates every year, which means that there's a significant market for the positions that are out there. And while a lot of them may share overlaps with things like environmental sciences, there are definitely fields that are more or less exclusively restricted towards the geology degree. You can't go and do volcanology for the U.S. Geologic Survey if you don't have a geology degree. If you're wanting to get into seismology and study earthquakes, that has to be geology. So there are really a lot of jobs that are out there. These guys are showing you some of the diversity that is out there. And again, the big thing is the fact that there are always positions available. We have 92% of all of our graduates find employment in the sciences, most of which is in geoscience, a few that are in science education. So.